What's up, everyone? Welcome to another review. This time we're taking a look at Better Call Saul Season 1. Now, I'm going to do my best to keep this review as short as I possibly can because I love the show Better Call Saul. I think that the first season of Better Call Saul is probably one of the best first seasons of any new show ever put to TV. Now, Better Call Saul tells the origins of Saul Goodman. We see we see the evolution of mild-mannered Jimmy McGill into the notorious legal man known as Saul Goodman. Now, in the first season of Better Call Saul, a lot of key components are set up, and a lot of Saul's origin is really explored. We find out that Saul's real name is actually Jimmy McGill, and that he had a brother named Chuck. We also find out that Jimmy came from Chicago, where he was known as Slippin' Jimmy, a con artist, if you will. And of course, when Jimmy went on the straight and narrow, he wanted to become a lawyer like his brother Chuck. Now, as the season progresses, we find out that Chuck, he's a complete fucking asshole who never liked Jimmy and prevented Jimmy from ever getting into any sort of law that he could do. Because from Chuck's words, slipping Jimmy with a law degree is like giving a chimpanzee a machine gun. And what I like about the first season of Better Call Saul is that the show does not flat out tell you that Chuck is a villain, because he starts off as a co-protagonist, if you will, and for the most part, Michael McKean and Bob Odenkirk, they have really good chemistry as the McGill brothers. I really like Michael McKean as Chuck. I think he brings a right amount of hard assness to him, but he also has some bright spots here and there. But when the turn happens and Chuck's true side is revealed, McKean just nails it. He nails the animosity and just flat out dislike he has for his own brother. And on the flip side, I like how Jimmy is completely devoted to Chuck. He idolizes his brother Chuck. He would pretty much do anything for his brother Chuck. And you can see just how brokenhearted Jimmy becomes when he realizes that his own brother pretty much betrayed him It's great stuff. It's really well written stuff. Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, they're just fantastic with the Breaking Bad universe, and just giving Saul his origins and where he came from with brother Chuck and all the events and what Chuck did to him throughout this first season, pretty much putting roadblocks as which way possible. Great stuff. But aside from that, we see McGill and his friend Kim Wexler. We find out that they are good friends. They pretty much started out together at HHM on the underground. Eventually, Kim worked her way up while Jimmy was put out to pasture. But they remain friends, of course. And of course, there's also the teases and hints of a potential romance that blossoms between the two. Very underlined as the season progresses, which is also handled fairly well. And the character of Kim Wexler as a whole, I really like Kim as a character. I think Rhea Seehorn did a really great job portraying Kim Wexler, and I really like her chemistry with Bob Odenkirk. They play off really, really well off one another, and I buy them as being good friends and potential romantic partners. It's great stuff. Another thing I like about this season is the character Howard Hamlin, played by Patrick Fabian. Now, when we first see Howard Hamlin, he's a douche. He's pretty much described as Lord Vader, but there's something about Howard that he's kind of sort of likable in a way. Like, he's not full on, he's a dick, but he's not full on dick. And when you actually get to the end of the season, we kind of realize that, Howard never really had any animosity towards Jimmy, because we find out that Chuck is the puppet master pulling all the strings, and he's pretty much made Hamlin his lackey in a way. And I love it. I love how all that comes together at the end of the first season and sets up perfectly for what's to happen with seasons 2, 3, and 4 as the show progresses. Great stuff. Other things I like about this show: we get the introduction of Mike Ehrmantraut, played by Jonathan Banks. We get the origin about how Saul met Mike. Great stuff. We get to know more about Mike, which is even better. We get more of Mike's backstory. It was hinted at in Breaking Bad that Mike was on the job in Philadelphia, but for unknown reasons, he had to flee Philadelphia. We find out exactly what happened in Philadelphia. Mike was a crooked cop who was taking bribes, and Mike pretty much tried to persuade his own son into taking bribes as well. though Mike's son was against that whole idea and didn't want to go through with it, but eventually he did. However, during a job, Mike's son got set up and he was killed by two corrupted officers who were also taking bribes because Mike's son was going to report those two officers to IA. And of course, we find out that Mike goes back to Philadelphia and gets revenge by killing those two corrupted officers that kill Mike's son, Matty. So we learn more about Mike's backstory, and it's just a tragic, heartbreaking backstory. That, in Mike's own words, he broke his own son, and that pretty much scarred Mike, and that's what made Mike even more of a hard ass that we come to know and love about him. And Jonathan Banks' performance in the episode 5-0 is fantastic. The last 10 minutes of that episode, when he's talking to his daughter-in-law, awesome stuff. Jonathan Banks sells that scene beautifully. Fantastic performance in the last 10 minutes of 5-0, where Mike's backstory is filled in about his time in Philadelphia. Amazing stuff. And just the chemistry with Mike and McGill is great stuff too. And how they first meet is very humorous. You know, Mike is pretty much working a toll booth, and there's this running gag of Jimmy not having enough stickers for validation. And pretty much their first meeting is that of hostility. But as the season progresses, a mutual respect starts to form between the two, and that's what ends up becoming. That, of course, forms into the relationship they have at the beginning of Breaking Bad. Great stuff. Another thing about the season I think is pretty good is, so there's a running storyline of these people called the Kettlemans, who are pretty much being accused of embezzlement, which of course they did, which of course the husband Kettleman did. He embezzled like millions of dollars from the treasury. So pretty much a good portion of the season is pretty much the Kettleman story, is the Kettleman lawsuit story, which of course branches out into the return of Tuco in the first two episodes. We see the return of Tuco, Breaking Bad alum. Always good to see Raymond Cruz. But a lot of good things come from the Kettleman things, because the Kettleman case is what really shapes Jimmy. Are those baby steps into shaping Jimmy as Saul Goodman. And then, of course, at the end of the season, we get the whole Sandpiper thing, which further fuels that gasoline, which further adds gasoline to that fire. And, of course, it's the Sandpiper case that leads to the split between Jimmy and Chuck. So, yeah, the first season of Better Call Saul sets up a lot of great things. It sets up a lot of cool stuff. I also love the black and white scenes that take place during the first season, which takes place in present day, where we see, you know, Saul as this guy called Gene, who is a manager at a Cinnabon. It's great stuff. I love it. So yeah, there is so much more to cover with the first season of Better Call Saul. Sorry, but those are just my big thoughts and highlights. I love the first season of Better Call Saul. I especially love the finale of Better Call Saul as well, an episode called Marco, where after the split with Chuck happens, Jimmy goes back to Chicago, hooks up with his friend Marco. His friend Marco eventually dies of a heart attack, and that's where the ring, that's where Saul gets his famous ring from. And we also find out at the end of at the finale, that a new law firm called Davis and Maine is looking to bring on Jimmy to handle the Sandpiper case after HHM teams up with that law firm. So yeah, it's going to be great when I talk about season 2 and how all that plays out. So yeah, as a standalone season, Better Call Saul sets up all the pieces perfectly for Jimmy's transformation into Saul. A lot of good things happen in this first season, and it gets better when I get to the second season. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for the first season of Better Call Saul. I love it. I highly recommend it. So yes, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.